Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Teaching Kitchen. My name is Emily. I'm going to be your chef today, leading you in our class titled Wrapped and Rolled. And Alita is going to be moderating our program. So thank you so much, Alita, for being our moderator. And what that means is if you have any questions throughout the program, if you need to, ask me, oh, what did you do there? Or can you slow that down? Or I didn't see, I missed that. Just let us know so we can make sure that you get all of the instruction and guidance that you're here for today. So Alita already got the chat box started there. You can put your questions in the chat. And I guess let's get rolling. I have to crack myself up a little bit, right? So Wrapped and Rolled, I created this class because I feel like some of the best things in life come, kind of wrapped up and you get to cut into them and you see that it has all this like wrapped goodness. So that's kind of where this came from. And I find that especially with children, if you have any children around your life or nieces or nephews or grandchildren, they seem to really like that kind of concept as well. So I have a 3-year-old niece, and anytime I put something on a skewer or like a stick, she'll eat it for whatever reason. I think kids just like to eat off of skewers. And then anytime I kind of wrap and bake something or cook something, she'll eat that too. So it's kind of a good trick if you're working with picky children. It's just like wrap it in puff pastry. And then you're on your way. So we're going to be making a few recipes. We're starting off with the eggplant rollatini, and you'll notice the eggplant that I'm using today. This is from our garden. It's going to be a little bit tricky to roll with these, but I really wanted to use our freshest and most local, very local, 100 feet away produce. So we're going to do our best. We'll see. Usually I make this with the larger Italian eggplants because it's a little bit easier to put the filling in and roll them. So this is going to be a bit precious and small, but we'll see how we do. And then we're also going to be making salmon en croûte. En croûte, it literally means like in a crust. So we're going to be wrapping it in. This one's easier because you just buy the puff pastry, wrap it up. Of course, we're making it the salmon. We're sneaking in some greens, so it's a great way to add some veggies in there. It's kind of like a one-dish meal. So that's going to be our class today. I'm going to start off. Oh, and I forgot, we're making a dessert, of course. How could I forget? Our rolled chocolate truffles. I guess I call them truffles because they look like truffles. They have lots of nuts and seeds, and they're sweetened with dates. And we're using almond flour and almond butter and cocoa powder. So it's like a very, healthy truffle, chocolate truffle. So we're going to be making those too. So I'm going to go ahead and start by just trimming the top. And you can use a knife, and you want to be careful when you trim the top of eggplants because sometimes they have like a little thorn or two sticking out. And you can either use a knife to cut very, very thin slices, like so. Or if you have a mandolin, you kind of want to set it. You can use this to make it what this knob on the back makes this slicing part thicker or thinner, so you can kind of adjust it. But you want to be careful, of course, if you're using a mandolin because it's just like using a very sharp knife. So just be very careful. I'm not using my mandolin guard. I lost it. I don't know where it is, but I'm just going to go very slowly. And then you have these perfectly sliced eggplants. You're ready to play eggplant cards or create a fan for yourself. I don't know. But you can go ahead and put them on some paper towel, put a little bit of salt, and then let them sit for about 15 to 20 minutes. So that it can absorb some of the bitterness of the eggplants. If you don't find eggplant bitter, you can skip this step. Some people are very sensitive to eggplants and the bitterness that they can be. These sort of Japanese style eggplants aren't particularly bitter, but I did just want to show you kind of how I set this up. So we're going to just move these ones out of the way. So I have a paper towel on the bottom. This is the rest of the eggplant. And then I already cooked some too. So I have a paper towel on the bottom. I put this on a wire rack and I kind of set it in a sheet pan like that. If it drips or anything like that, it's a little bit easier to, not make as much of a mess. And then it's resting on a paper towel. It had a paper towel layered on top, but you can, kind of dab. You can see this is absorbing some of the moisture. Dab the eggplant just to get off as much of that bitterness as possible. And that's pretty much it. So it's a pretty simple step, but one that can be skipped if your eggplant isn't bitter, like this, particular kind of eggplant isn't very bitter. And then you're going to go ahead and spread it on a sheet pan, and you're going to bake it for about 8 minutes or so. So these are ones that have been baked. So let's just pop these into a bowl, and then we're going to start rolling with these while the other ones bake. So eggplant rollatini is definitely a dish that I didn't really know about until, I had never really had before until recently, when I wanted to find sort of like a slightly healthier alternative to lasagna, which can have, tons of unhealthy carbohydrates, refined carbohydrates in the pasta. Look, once in a while, a great piece of homemade lasagna, is a wonderful treat and something to enjoy. But I wanted something that could kind of fill that like desire and need for something kind of comforting and that warming kind of Italian cuisine that we all really love, but isn't really as caloric, or it's just a little bit healthier and uses more vegetables. So that's kind of where this came in. I started digging around, and I came across on a menu eggplant rollatini. I'd never had that before, and I'm sure many of you have heard of it before, but it was sort of new to me. So I tried it and I loved it, and I just wanted to kind of learn to make it myself. So this is kind of my version on eggplant rollatini. So we start off just by a little drizzle of oil. And again, we're baking this, we're not frying it or anything like that. And we're gonna put this in the oven for 8 to 10 minutes. So my oven is already hot, and they will shrink a bit when you take them out because they contain a lot of water. And then this is what they look like when they're done. Okay, so they should be soft and pliable. I leave the skins on. Some people will peel I actually don't remember what I wrote in the recipe, but some people will peel the skins. I like the skin, especially if it's this Japanese variety. It's not as bitter for me, so I kind of tend to leave it on. Any questions or comments before we make our filling?
Yes, there are two. So
Sure.
question from, well, there's three now. So from Denise, she wants to know, is it possible to use the slicing side of a box grater versus the mandrel?
Yeah, that would be hard, Denise. Here's the slicing side of a box grater. I don't think that would work very well, honestly. You could try, but I think I would even recommend, using your knife over that. Just being very careful and slicing it thinly. Yeah.
Yeah, and Teresa wants to know, is the October schedule available yet?
Yeah, so thank you for asking, Terry. The October calendar is a work in progress. It's done. It's just on. We've had a couple of absences and etc. So it's on the desk of the people that need to get it out to you all. So it will be coming soon. But you know what I'll do after this class for everybody that's on? I'll just send you the classes that are coming up next week, because those are very soon. So I'll send you the 2 links for those. We're just doing 2 classes next week. If anybody's interested to join those. And then, hopefully it's supposed to go out tomorrow, but for whatever reason, if it doesn't, at least you'll have that information. Thank you for asking, and apologies for the delay.
So Denise has a question about skim milk cheeses. Do those create more moisture while cooking?
So Denise, that's a really good question. It depends on the cheese. Like a skim milk mozzarella, like a shredded one, I don't find that creates more moisture, but sometimes a skim ricotta will might have a little bit more. It's not really noticeable in this dish though.
And then JM noted that he sometimes uses zucchini if he doesn't have or want eggplant.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And you could probably alternate if you wanted to get a couple different veggies in there, right? You could do the zucchini and the eggplant. So let's make our filling. We have, this is the ricotta we're using today. I like this container because it's a little bit smaller than the giant tubs, and I don't tend to use that much of it. So it's only about, 3/4 of a cup. That's a rough 3/4. And we're going to add in our Parmesan cheese. Wait a second. Yes. Yes, our Parmesan cheese. I'm getting confused with the other recipe where we are going to be adding Parmesan to the pan. Then we're going to add an egg. And you can use frozen spinach for this, or you can use frozen kale. So I had this package of frozen kale. So I'm going to show you a trick that I like to do. I like to squeeze it in the bag and just pour it into the sink. So it's squeezing and pouring all at once, just to get rid of any extra moisture. So you really want to squeeze it well. So I don't know, I find that when you leave it in the bag, it's a little bit easier to do this, but you can also take it out and squeeze it into a bowl. I'm trying to create fewer dishes for myself to clean later, and I'm sure you have the same desire at home. So we can go ahead now, this has been squeezed, you can add that in. Really want to try to get it, all the moisture out as much as possible. And that's it for our filling. I think just a bit of mozzarella cheese is going to go in here. If you wanted to make this dairy-free, you could. It would be a challenge, but you could. You could make like often we do cashew cheeses here where you soak cashews and then you rinse them and then you blend them up with a little bit of water, some lemon juice. What else do we usually put in there, Alita? Some garlic sometimes.
Yeah, garlic, salt, nutritional
yeast.
yeast.
Of course. Yes, and then there's that nutritional yeast, which we use to give it that distinct cheesy flavor. So you could blend and make your own kind of cashew cheese. There are also some, dairy-free ricotta style cheeses out there as well. So you can really have some fun with this. And if you need to make it dairy-free for whatever reason, it's possible to do so. All right, so we have our filling. And I haven't really decided yet what pan I'm going to use. I'm going to see how this goes. I'm going to move our extra cheese off to the side because we're going to top our dish with that. But this is it. This is the filling, nice and easy. And then you can take each one, put on your breathwork meditation soundtrack, and roll. So each one, while you're rolling, you can do your own little, meditative practice. Any questions or comments about that? Because it might take you a long time to roll. That was the point of saying that.
There's a comment from Barbara that she loves the squeeze in a bag tip.
Oh, good. Yeah. Oh, and I want to give you guys another tip. Opening jars. Sometimes it's really hard to open jars. You can knock it a few times on the bottom. That'll help. Or you can take the back of your knife and do a little pop on the side. That'll kind of disrupt the seal. So that's another way to open that up. So I'm going to put some of this marinara in the bottom. And of course, if you've got homemade marinara, even better. And then each little rollatini is going to go into this dish. So you only want about a tablespoon per eggplant. And I like to just roll, towards myself, and you kind of nestle them in. So this is a really nice, dish to make on a day when you have a lot of time, or you just want to enjoy being in your kitchen because it's raining and storming outside, or it's just, you're looking for something that's kind of calming to do. And it's definitely fun to roll foods and do this with your hands. So another trick here is to lay out a few, and then you can take a little bit, put it in each one, and create like a little bit more of like a factory assembly line situation. I'm putting the filling on the fattest part of the eggplant first. It's hard to choose with this one because the eggplant's so long and skinny, but you kind of want to go from the fattest, thickest part and then roll towards you, up towards the thinnest part. Any other questions while we're rolling?
So yeah, there's a question. What if you use fresh spinach or kale?
Oh, if you wanted to use fresh, yeah, absolutely delicious. Especially this time of year, you can get some really nice, local fresh spinach and kale. If you wanted to use the fresh, you would do what we're going to be doing in our next recipe, which is to saute it, to cook it a little bit, just to kind of remove some of that moisture, because you don't want this to be too, too wet. Otherwise, you're going to run into trouble. Okay. Oh my word. We're going to be rolling for a long time, everybody. Hope you settle in. I think we could take a little short. I'm going to show you guys a little shortcut in a second after I do sort of the first layer. Go ahead.
So Denise commented that cooking can be very meditative for sure, as long as everyone stays out of the kitchen.
And that's hard, right? Because everybody who's in the house is usually in the kitchen, because that's always the place to be, right? You're so right, Denise. Yeah. Do it, when everybody's out of the house, it's nice and quiet. All right, so I'm going to do the first layer, and then I'm going to show you what it looks like, and then we're going to cheat. We're just going to kind of layer this on top and do, just like a eggplant layered with cheese and stuff on top. But I did really want to show you this technique because it's quite nice. It's quite fun. And when you have lots of time, it's a nice thing to enjoy doing. But for those of you who don't have all day to spend in the kitchen, you can still make this recipe just without the rolling. It's going to be a little bit different. So, and I have more eggplant in the oven. So I guess we'll see how we do with this batch. But what you can do, I want to do just maybe one more. I'll get a big one, biggish one. These are so little once they're cooked. They're like tiny, skinny little eggplant. Okay, so I'll show you what this looks like. Right. At this point, if you wanted to, it looks beautiful, right? If you wanted to finish off the dish, you could add a little bit more sauce on top, put your grated cheese, and put it in the oven, and you're done. Now, we're just going to get messy with it. We're going to scatter the extra eggplant around. I'm kind of fanning it out in like a, I don't know, rays of sun shape, if that's a thing, sunshine, rays of sun. Yeah. And kind of piling them in the middle, and just use your creativity. This is sort of like an eggplant flour situation, right? You've got all that extra eggplant, so why not use it? Okay. And then if you wanted to, with your filling, you could just kind of scatter it over the top and then top it with the tomato sauce, a little extra cheese, and you're done. So that's the I'm in a rush, quick, what do? I want to make this eggplant rollatini, but I don't want to spend all day doing it. That's your solution for this one. So you got some greens, you've got some nice dairy in here with the ricotta, the parmesan, and the mozzarella. And with this technique, you don't have to be too precious about it. So you've got, two strategies. You could do a little more, like I mentioned, a little more sauce over the top. Can't go wrong with tomato sauce, right? And then some grated cheese. I met someone recently who told me they couldn't have tomato sauce because they had terrible reflux, and that the tomato sauce really, or tomatoes in general, really aggravated the reflux. So I'm determined to learn how to make like a red pasta sauce that's not tomato based. I think that would be a good addition to the teaching kitchen. So there we go. There's our little rollatini dish. We'll put it in. Ooh, we got to make way. Make way for ducklings. Anybody read that book? Make way for ducklings book. Let's open this up, and we'll take one out just to make a little bit of space for the eggplant dish. You know what? I'm going to probably take both of these out, and I'll just finish cooking on these later. I just wanted to really demonstrate every step of this recipe so that you could really make it at home without missing a beat. All right, so we'll finish the cooking of those eggplants later because I want to make space for our salmon dish. Any questions, comments before we move on to that?
So yes, so there's a question about where can we find old recipes? I guess recipes that you've done in the past.
Yeah, great question. Alita, do you have the website handy, the Virtual Teaching Kitchen website?
I'll find it.
Thank you. Yeah, so to everybody who, if you've missed a class or you just want to revisit something we've done in the past, Certainly you can find all of our classes online. And I'm just going to flip this over so it's a little bit easier to work with a clean board that way. And once you go on our website, you can click on one of the videos, and under the video, it'll say the word download. And that word, if you click it, will give you the PDF, the packet that you all get for every class. So it's really easy, and it's a great way to just kind of catch up on anything that you missed.
JM says, for the person who can't have tomatoes, how about a roasted red pepper sauce?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'm thinking like something with red peppers and maybe carrots to give it that like distinct sweetness. But JM, I really like that. I really like that idea. Thank you.
So then E says, does somehow reducing the acid of tomatoes help with reflux? And how would you reduce the acid in tomatoes?
So you can't reduce the acid in tomatoes. Tomatoes are inherently acidic, which is why I want to make sort of red pasta sauce that doesn't include tomatoes. That still kind of gives you the illusion that you're having them, but you're not. Yeah, so that's kind of the, at least I don't know of any way to reduce the acid in tomatoes, but if anybody here does and wants to share, your experience, please feel free to do so.
And Millie,
sometimes people find that cooking them makes them may feel less acidic instead of raw, but I don't know about that.
Yeah. And Millie posted the website, so thank you, Millie.
Oh, thank you so much, Millie. Thank you. Wonderful. So I'm popping the skins off our garlic here, and we're going to chop this up and get it cooking with our leafy greens. Now this recipe calls for spinach. I didn't grow spinach this year. I grew Swiss chard in the garden, or rather should I say, I planted Swiss chard in the garden, and then the sun, the earth, the water, and our wonderful volunteers helped. But the garden is, still has this beautiful Swiss chard, even now, late into September. So it's really exciting to still be able to pull stuff from there. I will be very sad when we have to close the garden down, but it is the cycle of life. So we've got our garlic. We want to chop that up nice and small. I have a pan heating up here. And you can rest your hand on top of the knife when you're mincing and just cut apart, scrape together, cut apart, scrape together. Now, over time, this motion will dull your knife. So sometimes I advise flipping the knife over and using the spine so it doesn't dull your knife. It's a good habit if you want to instill that one. I think it's a little late for me, but I should try. I also sharpen my knives very regularly, so I don't really worry too much about dulling the blade because I'm sharpening them every week pretty much because I use them a lot. Okay, we have our garlic in. Let's get a spoon. And we're just going to start sauteing that. You can start on a low heat with garlic. You don't want to go too high because it will burn. So you just be careful with that. Here's our beautiful garden Swiss chard. It's like, see, unwrapping a present. We're going to cut the stems off. We're not going to use them, but you could if you wanted to. And roughly chop this apart. If you wanted to use the stems, I would just start by sauteing them first because they take a little bit more time than the leaves. So about 4 cups or so chopped greens. And if you find, you make too much, just eat it on the side. Leafy greens and garlic and a little pinch of salt makes a beautiful, quick and easy side dish, and a good way to make sure that you're getting greens into your meal. So let's pick this up and add it in. Another question or comment?
Yeah, there's a couple. So there's a question about, will the videos ever expire? Do they get removed?
No, they're on YouTube. So when I say they're on YouTube, I don't mean to cause confusion. They're on our website, but they link to YouTube. So to our YouTube channel. So I think they will, hopefully, I think they'll be there, forever.
Unless YouTube goes down.
Oh, yes, exactly. And then we might have bigger problems on our hands.
So then there's a question, is there a way to add the date to the name of the class when they go in?
Yeah, when they go in. I can ask the website team. I think there's a reason that they didn't do it that way. I think because it's on YouTube. When you click on the video and if you open it on the YouTube page, underneath it should say in gray when the date of the class, or at least when it was posted. So I think that's where you can see the date.
So yeah. Beverly says that she substitutes mashed winter butternut squash. I guess for tomatoes. You were talking about the tomatoes.
Oh, that's great, Beverly. Yeah, I didn't think about that one. Thank you. Yeah, that's a really good idea. Oh, you're also wonderful with your great contributions. Thank you.
There's another one here. So,
okay.
I'm sorry. So Linda says you can add a little baking soda to the tomatoes as you cook them to reduce the acid.
Interesting, Linda. Okay.
Never heard that one, but I'll definitely try.
Yeah, that's cool. That's very interesting. Thank you.
And then Valerie added that she thinks that dairy products can sometimes help with neutralizing the acid.
Okay.
And Beverly feels that all nightshade vegetables, also kind of bother with arthritis in addition to acid reflux. Some people can't have the nightshades.
I know that, and this is a nightshade heavy class, but not the salmon. Actually, the salmon doesn't have any nightshades. So, thank you, everybody. Thank you for that. So I'm going to pop my gloves on just because it's going to make it a little bit easier for me to work here. I'm going to show you how to work with this salmon and wrap it up because we have to get it into the oven so that it can cook. So I've turned the heat off on the greens. I just sprinkled a little Parmesan cheese on them and it's sitting and melting away. So you want to first take off the skin for your salmon. You don't want the skin on this one. So if you're going on your salmon here, you want to find the thinnest part of the fillet, cut through, but not all the way through, almost like you're scoring it. So you can create this nice flap. And this flap is going to be for you to hold on to with your fingers, sort of like if anyone's like ever gone rock climbing, right? You just have that like grip. And then you're going to use, you can see the knife I'm using today, this is called a fillet knife or a boning knife because it has this flexible blade, which really helps me get under the fish so that I can remove the skin really easily. There you go. Okay, so I'll do that one more time. You find the thinnest part of your salmon, just cut a little bit down, not all the way through, and then you try to get under it. And then you're cutting flush with the cutting board, right? It's almost like exactly parallel. And then your skin is removed. So you can leave the skin on in this recipe. I don't recommend it only because it's quite fishy. So if you want a little bit of a milder, and salmon's already a fishy fish, so if you want a little bit of a milder like experience, I don't know. I don't like the skin on this in this particular recipe. So I'm mixing up some mustard with olive oil, salt and pepper. Don't need a lot of salt because mustard already contains a lot of salt. So careful with your mustard. You're going to spread that all around. And this one's a little bit faster than the other recipe. It does need about 20 minutes to bake. You just grab your puff pastry, open up the package, make sure that you thawed it the correct way. So if you look on the back, it'll say thawing puff pastry sheets. These are found in the frozen section. So you want to make sure you thaw them. Here it says to thaw at room temperature, remove them and the outer wrapping until the pastry sheets unfold easily, no more than 40 minutes. And then you can thaw it in the microwave. So there are tips on the back of this box for doing that properly. I hope I did it properly. I think I did it properly. Let's find out. So we've got our puff pastry here. Open up your package. I'm only going to use one sheet for this recipe. So let's see. There it is. So you want to get one sheet, and don't worry about cross-contaminating with the salmon on the cutting board in this case, because guess what? It's gonna get salmon on it, right? So you're gonna open it up, and I like to usually I put a little bit of flour down. There's probably a reason I usually do that, and then I like to just make it a little bit bigger so that it has space to kind of wrap both salmon pieces. Okay, so see, it's not sticking too much, but it's good to do this with a little bit of flour on your board. So make this a little bit bigger because you basically want to wrap both salmon pieces with one piece of puff pastry. That's the goal. These salmon pieces are also a little bit bigger than the ones I usually use, but we'll make do. So here you go. And now it's time to wrap. So I'm going to go ahead and cut right down the middle. We're going to grab our salmon piece and we're just going to wrap this. Let's see which is the best way. I think this way. Try to tuck it all in. Spread the mustard on both sides if you can. Let me see. I'll put this back in the bowl because I didn't get the other side. See, I'm kind of using the bowl to spread the mustard around. All right, and then to get you in the wrapping spirit, with the holidays just a few months away. My goodness. I feel like this time of year, it's always just like a snowball into, into fall. You're gonna pull up on the sides. Oh, let's not forget our little spinach mixture. A little bit of spinach if you can fit that in there. Again, I like to eat it on the side as well. Just have it as a side dish. Spinach or chard, get your greens in somehow. Every time you cook a meal, think, have I added something green? Have I added something green? What is my something green? Okay, so you're gonna go up the sides and then you're gonna go up and over the top, up and over the top. You're just gonna create a little package and then we're gonna cook this on a sheet pan with the seam side down. So flip it over, pop it there, grab another one. And this is such a nice dish to make because not only is it, fairly quick, it's also something that, everybody seems to enjoy. And it presents really beautiful. So you can kind of pinch the seams together, flip it over, pop it down. Now you're gonna score the top because you have to create little seam vents. So just like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. We'll do a little egg wash. So I'm only using the egg yolk for this. So we're just going to separate, get rid of the white, or save it for a little extra protein in your next dish. You could just quickly cook it up with the rest of your greens and there's lunch, right? Extra egg white protein. Okay. Get some egg wash on this and let's put it in the oven. Any questions about this recipe?
There's still a comment from Teresa about back to the tomatoes.
Sure.
That she adds a pinch of
salt
and some vinegar, and she feels that works for her.
Okay.
E had a question about the baking soda. That looks beautiful. The baking soda, does it change the flavor or texture of the tomatoes?
Okay.
Linda feels that if you add too much, it makes the sauce tasteless.
Okay.
As the baking soda.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Wow. Great. Great conversation, everyone. I'm very, very curious to try the baking soda trick myself. I haven't tried that one. All right. Was there a question in there?
Or no, just comments.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make
nothing
sure
about the salmon yet.
Okay, perfect. So let's get rid, speaking of salmon, let's get rid of our salmon board here. We're gonna sanitize that appropriately. I'm gonna move, this is the thing that goes under your living room rug so it doesn't slip around. Same thing, you can buy it from the hardware store. Use a clean one, please don't use one from under your rug. And cut it to size, put it under your cutting board so it doesn't slip as you are working with it. It's a dream. It really makes things so much easier and safer too, which is what we want here at the hospital, is safety. Okay, so I'm gonna put all of this off to the side and we're gonna make our final recipe, which is our truffles. Any other questions? Anything else before we move on to that one?
No, there was just a question about, asking Linda how much baking soda was she at.
All right, Linda, you better
come up with the answer
for us. Yeah.
Actually, she says 1 teaspoon for 2 cans of tomatoes.
Beautiful. Great. And
And
there's also canned versus fresh tomatoes. Some people find that the canned tomatoes feel more acidic than the fresh ones. So that's something to think about as well.
there was another question about the October schedule, but you mentioned earlier that it hasn't been
Yeah,
sent
it's
out yet or
coming.
approved.
I promise. Yes, it is. It's on its way. Hopefully by tomorrow. Our class is next week. If you want to just mark them in your calendar, we're having one on Tuesday. We're doing a rustic Sicilian feast, and that's going to be at 5:30. That's Tuesday. And then on Thursday, I believe it's at 12:30. We're holding a class that's all about apples. So you can join us for that one as well. So that's Tuesday and Thursday. Those are going to be the programs coming up next week. Anything else? Just going to wash my hands here because I worked with the salmon.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure I get my hands really clean for this next dish because we're going to be rolling these with our hands. So when I think of truffles, I think of decadence. I think of indulgence and deliciousness. I don't think of health. So I wanted to change that. I wanted to create kind of like a rolled truffle experience, but with more health supportive ingredients. So we're going to be using dates. So here they are. So the recipe calls for medjool dates. You don't have to use medjool dates. Medjool dates are a little bit softer. So, you know, sometimes they can be a little bit easier to break down in the food processor. These ones are pretty soft though. You do want to just find some soft dates, ones that aren't really dried out and too hard because they won't break down. So these are pretty soft. And make sure that they're pitted. So I actually went through each one as I was putting them in this little box and just gave it a squish to see if it had any, you know, any pits hiding out in there, because you don't want a pit stuck to your food processor blade and then it's like a whole mess. So we've got the dates in there. We're going to be using some almond butter. So almond butter, again, it's made with almonds. So easy health supportive ingredient there because it's got lots of monounsaturated fats, protein, some fiber. So it's definitely, you know, a good choice. You want to look at the back of your nut butters though and check. This just has almonds and a little pinch of sea salt. So I actually may not add this salt. You want to try to find ones that are unsalted, if you can find nut butters that are unsalted. And please be careful if you're peanut butter or almond butter or any kind of nut butter that has, if you read the ingredients and it has the words hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated, that's kind of a sneaky word for trans fats. And we know that those are really inflammatory fats that aren't really that good for us. So try to avoid any partially hydrogenated or hydrogenated fats if you can find, you know, there's lots of different nut butters out there now. So hopefully you can find one that's affordable and that doesn't have those ingredients in it. Okay, so let's get started with that. We're going to pulse that a few times just to get it kind of broken down. Then we're going to add our almond flour. So again, more almonds into our almond flour. And I actually store my almond flour in the freezer. I find because it's a ground nut, I want it to stay as fresh as possible. Once the nut is broken down, it really starts to lose some of its, the fats in the nuts may start to go a little bit rancid. And a way to keep it from doing that is to put them in the fridge or freezer. So let's add that almond flour in here. We're going to add some cocoa powder. So this is the kind that I'm using today. This is Dutch processed. And what does that mean? It means that an alkali agent has been added to the cocoa, which gives it more of that kind of like rich brownie cocoa flavor instead of that like really bitter chocolate flavor. Both of them are good. The cocos that are processed with the alkali, they do have, you know, slightly fewer antioxidants, but in general, chocolate is loaded with magnesium, iron, copper, manganese. There's a lot of good stuff in cocoa and cocoa powder, especially the unsweetened stuff, which is what we're, you know, basically using today. It's all unsweetened. We're going to sweeten it with dates. So we're adding that in. I had this salt measured out, but because my almond butter actually has salt in it, I'm not going to use it. I'm going to leave it to the side. And then I also have these shelled hemp seeds. right? And these are a great source of protein. I like to use them at the end to roll the truffles in because it looks really pretty. But if you wanted to, you could toss them in there and add more protein to this dish. So let's get this going. And you want it to process until it kind of holds together. So be patient. It'll kind of start to form a ball. If it doesn't, you can add a little bit more of the almond butter and it'll help it stick together a bit better. So you can start to hear it changing. There we go. Let's give it another second. Any other questions, Alita?
Yes, there's a question about, can you use peanut butter?
Yeah.
Barbara says she makes her own, and could she
Yeah.
use whole wheat flour instead?
So you could definitely use peanut butter if you wanted to, or a mix. You could do like half almond, half peanut. It will have a very distinct peanut flavor. I find the peanut butter is like, whoa, this is peanuts, you know, whereas almond butter kind of is a bit more subtle. Cashew butter is the most subtle, I think, if you wanted to play around with that. And then if you wanted to use whole wheat flour, I would not use whole wheat flour in this because we're not cooking it, right? So you don't want to eat a raw flour. So with the almond flour, it's again, it's called flour, but flour actually just refers to the texture of the product. So it's really, really fine texture. And that's why, you know, we're using that almond flour because it's that fine texture, but I wouldn't use flour. Okay, so these are holding together. You can see here, they kind of form a ball shape. So you can roll each one, and then if you want to get your hemp seeds, you can press them into the ball a little bit. And then you have this really cool looking, like, doesn't this look like something you would pick up at Godiva for like $5, right? Or some kind of, you know, chocolate brand or something. And you know, it has a lot of health supportive ingredients in there for you. So again, dates, while they are a very concentrated source of natural sugars, they do also contain some fiber. They also contain some antioxidants. So they're kind of like what I always refer to as like sugar with benefits. You know, it's like you've got a little bit of something in there, and it's not just a huge glycemic load. Pull the blade out. Actually, I'm not demonstrating this well. Pull the blade out so you don't hurt yourself as you're going in there to scoop out. And every truffle should be, you know, it should kind of fit into the dimple of your palm in the middle there, right? That's kind of the right size, about a tablespoon. Other questions or comments?
Not at this point, Chef.
Great. So I like to store these in the fridge, and then anytime I want a sweet treat where I'm going for cookies or cakes, or usually it's at about 4 o'clock. That's kind of usually my energy deficit moment, is around that time. So I like to have things ready. I like to have things prepared for that moment, so I can kind of scoop into something that I know is not going to be that bad for me. Because let's face it, we're all going to make the decision to eat something sweet once in a while. And when we do make that decision, how do we make it in a way that's responsible, that's thoughtful, that's mindful, and easier said than done, right? Sometimes it's just like, oh my God, give me the cookies, where are they? Right? But other times when we might have, when we might have a little more presence, other times when we might have a little bit more of a handle on the wild horses of our senses that are just craving things, it's good to be prepared and have something that you can turn to that is going to help you out. Okay, so I think I can just put these off to the side, or I could keep rolling them. I guess it's kind of fun too. If you guys want to see me keep rolling things, there's not much else to do. Everything else is just baking away, so that's kind of nice. I did want to address salmon briefly before the close of class. So because it's very controversial, what salmon is good salmon? How do you choose? How do you know? But generally speaking, all salmon does contain some omega-3 fatty acids. specifically EPA and DHA, which they're called essential fatty acids because they have to be obtained essentially from your diet, because our body doesn't create that nutrient, and we actually really, really need it. When it comes to finding good salmon, I often refer people to a great website that's called seafoodwatch.org. They do a phenomenal job researching what type of salmon is the right kind to choose depending on where you live. If you're in California or New York, it actually will make a difference, sort of what's the very best choices for you. They also give you a good choice. So if you can't, sometimes the very best can be very expensive. And certainly if you are, trying to make a good choice, they'll give you kind of the second best and third best options. So it's really great to kind of empower yourself with some of that information, learn to make better decisions around your food, and, support a good, healthy food system for a better planet. So here we are. Truffles are almost done. Let's check on our friends in the oven because the timing of our class is pretty much over. Any other questions or comments about salmon? I know there's farmed versus organic versus wild versus all that stuff.
So there was
happy to go into that if anybody needs me to.
There was a comment from E. There was a recent article in National Geographic about mislabeling and sourcing of salmon.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, unfortunately, there is a lot of that when it comes to, fish. These are almost done. So you do the best you can. You empower yourself with the best information that you can get. Sometimes you can even work with a local fishmonger, and that's really great because then they can really tell you where the fish is coming from, because they got it themselves from the source. So, I'm always an advocate for getting in touch with your food providers, whoever they are. That can be expensive though. Sometimes if you go to a farmer's market and you buy fish there, they charge a lot of money. So it can be very expensive as well. So yeah, it's a little bit tricky right now. It honestly is a little bit tricky right now. And I'm hopeful though that these articles that are coming out about, fish and food systems and are going to help us to build a more transparent, a more ecological, and a little bit of a better food system where we can really trace where things are coming from, or we can really learn to understand the impact of our choices and what we're putting into our, not only for our bodies, but also the impact that it has on the whole world. So, and it all starts at the end of your fork, right? It's kind of amazing when you think about it.
There's a request for you to repeat the name of the website so that I can write it in.
Yeah, seafoodwatch.org. Thank you, Alita. That would be great. It's a really good resource. I think they do fantastic work. I think it's based out of Monterey in California. It might even be related to the aquarium over there that works out there. All right, so I'm just rolling these beautiful little truffles, and these will get stored again in the refrigerator. I usually will keep them, not more than a couple of weeks. They keep for a while because they're just nuts and seeds and dates, and there's nothing really in there that's gonna go bad per se, but they are broken down nuts and seeds, which over time, even in the fridge and freezer, they might start to develop like a little bit of a funky taste. So yeah, I would say a few weeks for these, have them handy, and then you can always put them in a beautiful box and gift them to someone if you're feeling generous. But yeah, they don't usually make it past a few weeks in my house. All right, so let's check on everything in the oven. We'll scoot these off to the side and make some space. And I apologize, we're running just a few minutes over. It smells really good in here. Let's see how we're doing. So, okay. So this looks beautiful. This is our eggplant rollatini dish. Oh my goodness. Just have a look at that. So you could even, the sauce is still a little, see, it's a little bit liquidy. You could even let this go for a little bit longer. So we'll pop that one back in. And then the salmon looks really beautiful. It needs more time for sure. So I'm going to put this back in as well, but I just wanted to show you, it should get golden and the pastry should sort of be golden and like kind of puff up. So that's how you know that it's done. So there you are, everybody, your wrapped and rolled cooking class. I hope that you can, you know, find moments of groundedness in the fall. It's all very back to school, back to whatever it is, and seasons are changing and the wind is blowing. So I really like this wrapped and rolled concept because it gets you into your kitchen, it gets you grounded, gets you working with your hands, it gets you folding things up, and just it's a nice opportunity to kind of connect to a little bit of quiet time when the world is, you know, spinning all around you. So thank you so much for joining, everybody. Thank you, Alita, for moderating, and have a beautiful afternoon.